Greetings, my name is Kerry and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you about all of the books that I currently have out from the library. So my local library is amazing. The actual library itself is quite small, but all the city libraries are connected. So if you're wanting to borrow a book, then you just search on the city library catalogue and you can request it from any library in the city for free and they deliver it to your local library. So my local library has a good selection despite its size, but it's also really easy to pick up books from other libraries, which has led to me borrowing a heck of a lot of books. You'll see from this list that they are mainly, a lot of them are ones that are talked about on BookTube quite often, and so rather than buying books, I've got into the habit of seeing if the library has them first, and then I will borrow them, and then if I like them, then I put them on a list of books that I want to buy at some point. If I really love them, I often buy them quite quickly. So for example, this morning I returned Strange the Dreamer to the library, which you'll see me talk about in my September wrap up, and I love that so much that I ordered a copy of it straight away because I wanted to have a physical copy for myself, because I'm sure I'll want to reread it. So I'm going to go through all the books that I currently have out, and then I'm going to talk about which ones I'm going to try and get to soon. I want to get through as many of these as I can in the next month before they're due back. So that's sort of my aim for October reading, is to get through as many of these as possible. I've not put them in any sort of order to show them to you, so we're just going to go through, just going to go with it. So starting with the one that I picked up today, so this was the latest one to come in that I reserved, and that is The Lies of Locke, Lamora by Scott Lynch. This is first in a fantasy series, which I've heard really good things about. Don't know very much about it. I tend to go into books quite blind. So there's that one. The second one I have is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. So people have been talking quite a lot about Circe, which is her latest book which is out. I've actually got that one requested, so I'm waiting for that to come in, but this one was also available, so I wanted to get this one out and read this, because although I don't think Circe is a sequel, I know that this one came out first, so I was going to try and read this one first. Next I have two books by the same author. So I have Uprooted and Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. These are both books that I actually had out at one point, and then when I tried to renew them they'd been requested by someone else, so then I had to request them again and they both come in again. So I'm really excited to read both of these. I've heard really good things about them. Next we have Wide Sargasso Sea by Rhys. I heard about this one on, I think it was, what's her channel called? Lucy the Reader, who reads a lot of classics, and this is written as sort of a prequel to Jane Eyre, and it's about Bertha Mason, who is just a really fascinating character in that novel, so really keen to read that, and it's not actually that long, so yeah, looking forward to that one. Next we have Bring Up the Bodies by Hilary Mantel. This is the sequel to Wolf Hall, so I read Wolf Hall in August, so I requested this when I got back so that I could read the follow-up. Next we have We Should All Be Feminists by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I think that's how you say it. So this is actually just a really little book about feminism, so that one I should easily read that this month. We also have More Than This by Patrick Ness. So I read a couple of Patrick Ness books earlier in the year and saw this one in the library, so I thought I'll give that one a try as well, as I really enjoyed the first two I read by him. And we have Dumplin by Julie Murphy. Again, I think this is the first in a series, and I've heard people talking about Pudding, which is, I think it's more a companion novel than a sequel, but I've heard really good things about that, so I wanted to give them both a try, but I wanted to read this one first. Next we have The 100 Rebellion by Kass Morgan. So I'd been watching the TV series of The 100 a few years ago when it first started, and then I found out that it was based on a novel, So I got the novel out and then realised that that was a first book in a series. So this was a couple of years ago. I read the first 3 books, and then this year, quite recently actually, I found out that there was actually a 4th book in the series. So as soon as I found that out, I requested it from the library. I actually stopped watching the TV series when I read the books because I thought the books were better. The TV series actually goes in quite a different direction, and I kind of lost interest in it a little bit. But I really enjoyed the books, and this is the 4th one in that series. Next we have Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. I've actually had this one out the longest, I think, of all of these books. So this one is quite a high priority to get to, and I just read, as I said, Strange the Dreamer and loved it, so I'm really keen to read this one, and I think I can get the rest of the series from the library as well. I'm sure I'll buy them eventually because I think Laini Taylor's going to be, well, based on the one book of hers that I've read, she is probably going to become an author for me, but I don't know. I'll give this one a try and Muse of Nightmares, and then I'll let you know. And next we have Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. This is another one that I've heard a lot about on BookTube. I've read Illuminae by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman and really enjoyed it. So I'm quite looking forward to reading this one. Again, this was one that I'd had out previously and someone had requested it, so I've had to get it out again. It happens to me quite a lot, which really should tell me something about not borrowing too many books at once, because I don't have time to read that many. Next we have a book called Mermaid by Carolyn Turgeon. So I've read previously a book by her called, I think it was called Godmother, which was a retelling of Cinderella. This one I'm assuming is a retelling of The Little Mermaid, and I really enjoyed Godmother, so I'm quite looking forward to this. This was actually one I picked up because I mentioned in my, I think it was in my Tome Infinity reading blog, that I struggled to take out an odd number of books from the library, and when I was being indecisive about which books I wanted, I picked this one up so that to round up my numbers. So that was a bit of an impulse pickup, but as I say, I've read another book by her which I really liked, so yeah, that's that. Next we have The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. I feel like I'm pronouncing her name wrong, but never mind. Again, this one is talked about quite a lot on BookTube. Yeah, so quite looking forward to reading that one and starting that series. And next we have one called Thief's Magic by Trudi Canavan. This is another fantasy one, the first in a series again. I've got quite a lot that are firsts in series, so I'll have to read the first ones and then decide if I'm going to carry on with the series or not, and I probably will because I'm like that. And I think this one I read about on a book blog. I think it was Lulu Reads I heard talking about this series as just sort of a light-hearted fantasy romp, so yeah, so quite looking forward to that too. And then finally, it's one I've actually started this morning, and that is To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han. So about nearly halfway through that. I started it this morning, and this one again has been really talked about on BookTube recently and has just been made into a Netflix film. So I wanted to watch the film, but I always like to try and read the book first if I can, and yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. I don't read a lot of YA contemporaries, and that's mainly because I feel too old for them. I think if I'd read this book when I was the same age as the characters, I'd probably get a lot more from it, but it's, you know, it's quite sweet, and enjoying it so far. So this one I decided to read first out of all of these because when I checked on my account, this one has a lot of people waiting to read it, so I knew that I'd have to wait. If I didn't read it this time around, I'd have to wait again for a while, so I thought I'll just get on and read that one first and then get it back so someone else can read it. After that, I'm probably going for Daughter of Smoke and Bone quite soon because that's the one I've had out for the longest, and likewise Dumplin and More Than This I've had out for quite a while as well, so they're fairly high priority. This one I should definitely be able to read this month because it's like 50 pages and it's tiny, and I definitely want to try and get onto the Naomi Novik ones as soon as possible. and maybe also if I have time I'll start on the Lives of Locke and Lamora. These ones because they are ones that I have had to re-request because I haven't read them quickly enough. So I mean that's quite a big ask. There are 16 books out from the library here. I probably will finish To All the Boys I Loved before this weekend, and then I'll just see where I go because I don't want to exclusively read library books. I have a lot of books that I own that I need to read as well, but yeah, I need to read these and get these back, and then I need to try and not borrow as many books from the library because I have so many that I own myself. But I figure that I am saving money by borrowing them and not buying them, so what you're gonna do. And also, as I say, many of these are the first books in series, so I will probably try and get any sequels from the library as well. So that's all I have for you today. Let me know if you've read any of these books and if you think I should try and get to them. Which ones do you think I should try and get to soonest? And yeah, so have a chat to me down in the comments about any of these books that you liked or any that you think are not worth my time. Please subscribe if you haven't. Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye. Hello, so it's Saturday. It is actually a week after I filmed my library haul video, which I was going to upload for you yesterday, only I had an email, in fact I had 2 emails from the library this week to say 2 more books that I'd requested had come in. So I'm about to go and pick those up, which is not as much of a problem as it could have been because I have actually finished 2 library books this week, so I'm going to take them back at the same time. So I finished To All the Boys I've Loved Before, which was the one that had the most requests, so I can take that one back and it'll go on to the next person that's waiting for it, which is really nice. And I finished We Should All Be Feminists because it was super short and really quick to read. So I'm going to go and take those back now, pick up the other 2, and then I'll have to do a little bit of a check and see if there are any new reserves on any of the books that I have out before I decide which one I'm going to read next. I actually just finished a book this morning. Yeah, so all set to go with my next library book later today. Hello, so it's Sunday now and I just need to wrap up my library haul video for you. As I mentioned in that short clip yesterday, that I filmed yesterday, I had to pop up to the library to pick up 2 reserves that had come in. So I'm just going to go through what they are with you. I think I mentioned one of them definitely in the first part of the video, which was Circe by Madeline Miller. So I already had out The Song of Achilles. I think I'm actually going to try and read this one first because this one has got another reservation on it. So I've got it out for a month now, and there are 4 copies in the city and there's only 1 reserve, so I probably will be alright, but I might try and get to this one before Song of Achilles because they don't follow on from each other as far as I'm aware. Correct me if I'm wrong on that because I'd hate to spoil one of the books for myself. So yeah, I'm really excited about this one. The cover is gorgeous. I've heard so many good things about it, so I'm really keen to get on with reading that one. And the other book that I picked up, you all have seen that I returned To All the Boys I Loved Before yesterday. I quite enjoyed it. I understand why it's getting a lot of hype. I'm also very aware that I'm not the target audience for it, and I think if I'd read it when I was 17, when I was the same age as Lara Jean, I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more because I can see a lot of similarities to myself at that age and her character. I'll go into a bit more in my wrap up, but I enjoyed it enough that I wanted to carry on with the series. And because the first book had so many reserves on it, I thought it probably would take a while for the second book to come in, so I put a reserve on it straight away, and it took less than a week to come in. So I've got P.S. I Still Love You, I picked that up as well. This one is a bit shorter, I think, than the first one, and I'm just interested to see where the books go. When I finish this one, I will probably, unless this one's terrible, I will probably pick up the third one as well. And then when I've read them all, at that point, I will watch the Netflix series, film or whatever it is that they've done on Netflix, because I have images in my head of what these characters look like, having not seen too much of the trailers and whatnot for the Netflix film, so I'd like to keep my own imaginings of the characters for now. Yeah, so this is definitely a series that's worth a read, particularly if you are into YA contemporaries, which I don't read a lot of them. But yeah, so I've got that one to go. So I've still got 16 books out from the library now, because I took 2 back yesterday and picked up 2 more. I have recognised that this is becoming a bit of an issue, because you'll have seen from if you watch my TBR tag video that I filmed a couple of weeks ago, I'll put the link for that down below. I have well over 500 books that I own on my TBR, on my physical TBR, and while the library is really great because it's stopping me buying more books, so it's really good for my bank balance, and it's a good way of sort of gatekeeping for myself if I actually want to read authors. So if I haven't read an author before, I'll try and get that book out from the library first. If I'm not sure if I'm going to like a book or not, I'll try and get it out from the library. So like the Jenny Han ones are just talking about, I'm really glad that I borrowed from the library, because I'll read them once, I won't ever want to reread those, so I'm glad I haven't spent money on those books. But it's getting to a point now where I'm having to prioritise reading library books over reading my own books, and it's getting a bit frustrating. And I know it's just because I keep doing it to myself, because I put in loads of reserves, they all come in and I go and collect them, and also seem to only be able to borrow books in even numbers, which I'm not quite sure how that's happened recently. So I've decided I'm imposing limits on myself that from now on I'm only allowed to reserve a maximum of 2 books at a time. It was going to be 1 book, but at the moment I've got 1 book reserved, which is a new Kate Morton book. I love Kate Morton, and I'm 22nd on the list for that book, so that's going to be ages before I get to read that book. I think there are about 6 or 7 copies in the city, so I don't want to prevent myself from requesting other books when I've got one that's on long-term request. So yeah, so I'm going to let myself reserve up to 2 books at a time, and once I've returned all the books that I've currently got out, I'm going to let myself a maximum of 2 library books out at a time. So if I want to pick up more, if I go down there and see one that I want, or if a couple of reserves, both the reserves come in or whatever, I'll have to return the ones I've currently got out before I can pick up any more. I think that would be a good way of making me be a bit more sensible about my library borrowings. I also have lots of books that I've borrowed from friends and family that I need to give back to them as well, so yeah, so that's the plan with that. So I have started another library book. I've now started Daughter of Smoke and Bone, which is the one I've had out from the library for the longest. I feel a bit weird because I was half imagining that, having read Strange the Dreamer so recently and now having Muse of Nightmares, that I'd go straight on and read that as my next Laini Taylor book. But as I say, this one's been out I've had it for several months from the library because I keep renewing it. So I just really wanted to get on and read this. And also I have a bit of a thing where I don't like reading series back to back, so it's probably good for me to take a bit of a break after reading Strange Dreamer before going straight into Muse of Nightmares, even though I pre-ordered it so that I could read it straight away if I wanted to. So I'm reading this one. I've only read a couple of chapters, enjoying it so far. Probably won't take me too long to get through, and then we'll probably try and look at borrowing the rest of the series from the library, because I think they've got them all, but again I'll have to stagger it and I'll have to wait until I've given back the rest of the 16 that I've got out. Yeah, there's a number of series that I'm getting from the library that I want to keep getting, that I'm just going to have to pace myself and let myself make myself wait to get them out. Delayed gratification and all that. So that is all that I have for you. Yeah, so let me know if you have similar library addiction. Make me feel better about myself. And again, if you've read any of these books, if you love any of these books, tell me which ones you think I should get to first. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.